He is a 5-time Forest Wood Cup qualifier, a 10-time Bassmaster Classic Qualifier, a former TTBC Champion from Asheville, Alabama. Matt Herren joins me this week on...
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Welcome one, welcome all, friends, family, freeloaders, fishing freaks, and of course my humpers. Happy hump day to all of you, and welcome into the Awkwardly Honest Fishing Podcast that goes by my last name, which is Mercer. This is the 195th edition of the Mercer Podcast, and I hope wherever you're watching or listening to this, that life is treating you well. A very special shout out and thoughts and prayers go out to all of those affected by the fires in California. Devastating. I think I heard 10,000 homes, 10,000 buildings, homes gone. So devastating, and in such a incredibly beautiful part of the world. I mean, if you've spent any time in California, and I've been lucky enough to be there several times, it feels like it's fake. Like it's just that beautiful. It's so beautiful. But to just see that devastation, I'm thinking about you. I know that that doesn't help, but I just feel something should be said, because those poor people dealing with such a travesty. But let's jump into our show, because this show, I mean, I always look at this show. This is a bit of a break. You know, we all deal with different issues throughout life, but this is... Come on in here and get a reprieve from the real problems of the world. And we have a great show here this week. But before we talk about this week's show, I want to talk about a show that I just watched. And I'm going to tell you, every single one of you needs to watch this. I can't stress that point enough. You guys know my affinity, my love for the King, Clun, Rick Clun. Obviously, was on this podcast once a month last year, part of our residency program, which residencies are getting very popular on podcasts. So good to see that happening. But Rick Clun, unbelievable human person. We can all learn from him. One of the greatest pieces ever put together in the history of the sport was put together this past week. A show we've talked about airs on FS1. You can also see it on Bassmaster.com, called The Cast. They did an episode on Rick Clun. And I'm going to tell you, this thing, it's incredible. It's Bass Superstar, Rick Clun, it's called. I'm going to put the link down below in the description. You need to watch it, because I have so much reverence for that man, that he has given so much to our sport, given so much to mankind. The world needs more people like Rick Clun, trust me. But I started watching it, and I couldn't stop. I mean, it's just that mesmerizing. What that man has accomplished in his life, what that man has done for this sport, we cannot say thank you enough. So I will put a link. Make sure to check that out. It is incredible. And kudos to JM Production. Anybody who had a little piece of that, I don't care how big or small, thank you and congratulations. Because if you ask me, it's 22 minutes long. It could be an hour long, it could be a movie. It should be in film festivals. The story is so incredible, but the way they told the story, kudos. Just incredible. Like I said, I am all over the place. Don't know if you've realized this, but I have ADD in a bad way. So it's hard to get my attention. But this was something that I started watching, and I was so locked in on it, nothing else mattered. So do yourself a favor, not right now, like after this show, but at some point, check out that link. It's incredible. But we got a good show here this week, and it's hard to believe that I have never had Matt Herren on this show. I mean, he is an incredible human being, so honest, always honest. Kind of became the poster child for anti-forward-facing Sonar this past year, and maybe that's why it took so long to have him on, just simply because I do try to keep things up, but we go down that road, and some of what he says will be very, very shocking to you. But we have a very open conversation about his career. I mean, he didn't start professional fishing until he was 39 years old. This is different than the stories that you hear about all the young guys that, you know, jump out and take a risk then. He took a risk with a family and kids, and it's a great story. He is a great angler, and it'd be great if you left a comment. By the way, that is super important, as I tell you each and every week. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. Leave a comment. That is you giving an applause for the show. If you enjoy this show, just give it a thumbs up. You don't have to say anything. Just whatever platform you're on, especially our streaming friends. I know you're going to blow up the YouTube comments, but everybody that watches this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave a rating, leave a comment, because all of that allows this show to be what it is. But ultimately, you guys allow this show to be what it is. So keep supporting it. I love everything that we have built. This community is incredible. I heard from Rob Newell, the amount of books that you guys are buying, incredible. Enjoyed that podcast, and I hope you enjoy this one. Without further ado, Matt Herren. Matt Herren, it is good to see you. And you, like, well, the majority of the South, the whole South has posted snow pictures this week. Did you post one?
I didn't post any, but everybody else, I sit back and enjoyed theirs. I've been sitting out in the snow. You know, we don't ever get to hunt in the snow down here, and it's been a unique experience. I love to hunt whitetails, and so the last 2 or 3 days I've hunted, and it's been kind of different. The deer look absolutely miserable. These poor southern deer don't know what to do.
Trust me, I think snow's cute for people that like it is a beautiful thing. It's just it doesn't end. It starts, exactly. I've figured it out. You guys feel exactly as I feel when the start of the winter happens. You know how you feel it's been sweltering all summer in Alabama, ungodly hot, and then you get that first morning where you're like, fall's coming. There's hoodie weather ahead. You know that feeling you get?
Right? Oh yeah.
It's the exact feeling I get when winter starts here, because, but exact opposite actually of the feeling I get. I get that feeling when we go to Florida, but it's just a miserable time of year up here. But your snow's going to go away, right?
Well, ours is going away. Y'all's will be there in about April probably.
Yeah. Until the only way I get out of snow is to get on a plane and come see you and
Get on a plane.
Palatka.
Yeah. I bet when you hop off the plane and land down in Florida, your old bones you start loosening up, and it's oh yeah.
Alive again. Alive, just like fall for you. Like when you're
Oh yeah.
tired of sweating, you feel that feeling where you're like, it's finally gonna get a little reprieve from it. But no, I think it's been fun to watch the South deal with a little snow. But the nice thing in the South is everybody shuts down for the most part, right? Like the world doesn't like.
Yeah, we don't have the infrastructure. We
Yeah,
just
no.
we just don't have it like y'all do. So
Right.
with that, and we get a lot. I don't know if y'all do up there. We get a lot of ice and freezing rain and stuff. And it's I don't other than chains and spiked tires. I don't know how you deal with it. So if you ever come down south and it's snowing, stay away from people from down here. They'll hit you in their car. They don't know how to drive on it.
Yeah, snow days should be a thing. Here they make you show up at school still, but no, it should be a thing down south. So
Yes,
what's
sir.
this time of year for you like? Outside of dealing with snow, which isn't normal, but season's about to start. I mean, do you still get excited? What is your brain like right now?
I kind of went into I need to start going through tackle and organizing, and really for the last couple of weeks, my mind's uh, been drifting off to the upcoming schedule. I've been looking at some YouTube videos. That's my nightly ritual. I'll sit there and watch some videos. I do a lot of homework looking at Google Earth. Things like even like coming up to St. John's. What have I missed in the past? What have I overlooked? And mentally, probably for the last couple of weeks, my mind's kind of got switch gears. I'm still deer hunting and that kind of stuff, but it's mentally, that old clock's ticking, and I'm starting to get that. I'm ready to go.
So YouTube is the thing that gets thrown around, and everybody thinks it's a tool that it's one of the reasons the youth are as good as they are today. But it's not just a youth tool. I mean, the Elite Series watches YouTube, correct?
I do. You're crazy not to. I mean, it's a useful tool. And I think the reason why the youth is so much further along in their ability is all the knowledge we gave them
Yeah.
on YouTube and all the platforms. Bill Owen and I were having a conversation not long ago, and it was pretty much like, if we knew what we were doing 25 years ago, I'd have kept my mouth shut. You wouldn't have had the money to get me to spill my guts on all the stuff that I knew. And same goes for the generations before me. I mean, you think about the stuff at Clun. He shared with the world, or Denny Brower shared with the world, or Kevin Van Dam shared with the world. And that's kind of a double-edged sword in our sport. We're fortunate we get to do what we do for a living, and but in the process we share our knowledge, and those that come behind us, they're up to us pretty quick, and they're past us even faster. So it's kind of a double-edged sword when you play that.
Yeah. It's that's the weird thing, and it's so different than any other sport. Like, I mean, in another sport, if somebody asks you what you're using, if somebody like, it's okay to just walk away and say, I'm not even talking about that. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh
if you
yeah.
ask Andy Reid who he's playing in the Chiefs game this weekend, he's not going to answer it until the last minute, and that's part of the sport. But in fishing, the rules are different. You guys got to talk to the camera while you're competing. You guys got to give that information. Do you think there'd ever be a time where an angler would just say, no, I'm not doing this?
Yeah, John Cox still does it pretty regular. He's smarter than all of us. He won't give up anything. And I don't blame him. I mean, he's one of the most naturally gifted shallow water guys that's ever been. But he's very guarded about what he says. And he's smart. I mean, he's literally smart, because there's little subtle things that you learn all your years on the water that you might not ought to spill your guts, because somebody's going to beat you with it if you let it out.
How often do you feel throughout your career, is that you giving information burns you? Like, is it a weekly thing, a few times a season, or is it, once every 5 years?
It's probably once every 5 years, and the biggest thing that'll get you is, there are no new lakes, so we're
Yeah.
going to lakes repeatedly. And if you get fortunate enough, most of the time when you'll wind up having a very high finish in a tournament, and you'll find some off the wall deal, whether it's a little corner on the end of a ledge, or some little something there somebody overlooked. When that camera goes in your boat and you're on day 4, that gig's up. You just burn it. And you just don't find that many special places. I got a place at Toledo Bend. I actually I want to say it was the year that Kevin won. I made the top 10 in that tournament. I finished 4th, 5th, something like that. And I found a little ledge that was out in the middle of Toledo Bend. It was just one of them glory holes. And to this day, every time we go back, if I try to go near that area to fish it, you can forget it. You're not getting on. And finally, I pulled up down there one day, and I'm idling around. He goes, there's a local. And he goes, you're about 100 yards off. I said, no, I know where it's at. He said, yeah, this place is named after you now. This is the Herren hole. I'm like, yeah, here we go. That one's gone.
Well, at least they gave you that. I mean, you got
Yeah,
fame. People
yeah,
speak of you nicely.
yeah. And I'm glad they enjoyed it. But that's just, unfortunately, we play our games on public venues. Uh, Everybody sees what we do, whether it's they're on the water watching, or whether they're on the water, or they're at home on watching the TV. They see. But the flip side to that is, as a professional angler, that's, I get paid for that.
Yeah.
My sponsors want me to show the baits and the lures and all the wherewithal, and that's why, I have my job. So you just have to constantly keep trying to learn and find new little sweet spots. And boy, it's hard after you've been to a lake so many times.
Yeah.
They all get given away.
And I also think, what makes it different is, number one, we're not baseball. We're not golf, no matter how many times people want to compare it to. So, but also most of you guys were fans to start with. Didn't you tell me once you drove a classic? Were you a truck driver at one of the classic weigh-ins years ago before you made it as a pro? No.
No.
Okay,
My
I'm totally
experiences with the
wrong.
classic. No. I used to go. We've had so many classics in Alabama. My first experience with the Bassmaster Classic was he was a kid then. His name was Stanley Mitchell.
Yeah, youngest
I had actually
ever.
that's yeah that was probably 2 hours from my home, and I drove down for the last day, and I watched Stanley win, and that kind of lit a fire under me. That was the same year I graduated high school. That was '81, and but my gosh, back then, Dave, you didn't ever dream. It was like just a forethought that you could ever make a living as a professional fisherman, and it rocked on. I mean, I had the fire, and I was fishing the local stuff or whatever, but it wasn't until I was close to 30 that it started dawning on me, and the sport started growing. That it was actually feasible to make a living doing it. But it was Stanley Mitchell, and then I got to watch Denny. Well, no, George Cochran won. Now George actually won on my fish. The guy that I fished team tournaments with divulged that. So I got to watch George win. I got to watch Fritz win here, Bob Hamilton win here. So I got to experience a whole lot of guys win a whole lot of classics right here at home. And then, yes, I think I got lost in what we was talking about.
No, well, it started off with me being totally wrong and thinking you once drove a classic boat. It was somebody else, but
Right?
I told you. Remember before we started recording, I said, "Don't worry, I have nothing planned." I just friggin' proved it to you.
Kind of like the way I go fishing every day. We're going to wing it.
Is that the best way to fish?
I'll be honest with you. For me, it is. For me, it is. The last couple of years, I've struggled. Ain't no secret about it. I've struggled, which is very uncharacteristic. I've always been pretty solid. And I've got caught up trying to. I've always prided myself. I showed up when I was full-time professional at 38. I mean,
Yeah.
I was 38 years old, fishing FLW,
Mm-hmm.
and had a lot of success over there. But it seemed like what my background and what I knew before I showed up was really good. But traveling all the different venues around the country as a 38-year-old, now a 62-year-old, I've never quit learning. I've had to. I'm not the guy that is just going to fish. But the way I've always fished, and sometimes I think it gets me in trouble. But I had to learn up to show how to drop shot. I didn't know what to drop shot. I didn't know
Yeah.
nothing about no smallmouth fishing. I was 40, 45 years old before I had to go figure this out. And cracking tubes and whatever, all the intricacies of that. And it's so, God, my whole career I've been learning. I've spent my whole off season. I tried last fall a little bit, and really, honestly, since September, I don't know how many hours I have logged with the forward-facing sonar unit. I have spent a lot of days, a lot. So I'm still learning, but through it all, I finally I'm at peace with what I'm going to do. I'm gonna fish how I fish, but I know enough about that now that if I need to do it, I will. So, and last year I kind of got caught up trying to do it, not knowing how, having a clue what I was doing, and you just you have to fish to your strengths. You can't. I don't know. You get caught in two different worlds. When you get caught in two different worlds, it's a bad place.
Yeah. Your foot on one side of the dock and one on the boat. You know where you end
Yeah,
up. Do you
yeah. You're gonna
think
wind up in the water.
that I mean, I don't think it's a secret to anybody that you were one of the biggest proponents for it to go away. And you were very vocal about it. Do
Right.
you think that being part of that battle, being somebody who was very obsessed with that throughout the season, do you think that harmed your finishes on the water? Like, do you think there was some distraction?
I think it got me in a negative mindset,
Yeah.
and when you get negative, you don't fish well. And for the last couple of years, I've been really negative about it. I still don't know the answer. I spent enough time with it this fall. There's still one part of that technology that I think is detrimental to the sport. One. The only one. Because as a tool to traditionally structure fish with it, like in the down imaging setup or, fishing structures type fishing, I think it's awesome. I've done it a lot this fall. But the aspect of being able to go to the middle of the lake and chase fish down like dogs, I still got a big problem with that. Because to use it as a traditional structure tool, you still got to know all the fundamentals of what you're doing.
Yeah.
But to go out and chase suspended fish in the middle of nowhere, we're going down a road I don't think we need to go down. But I don't know how in God's name would you take that one aspect of it and make it not useful in tournaments. You can't. So I don't know what they're gonna do. I'm gonna go fishing. I'm tired of working.
So mentally you think you're going into this season a little different than say the last 2 seasons?
A lot different. Yeah. 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 You can't. I don't know. It's the biggest thing I think this year's going into it that I'm looking forward to is I think Bass did a really good job or has tried to do a good job of making everybody have to be well rounded in all that we're going to do. Guys, they're going to have their tournaments that they're really going to shine before we're facing Sonar, but then we're going to have tournaments that hopefully, if everything works out right, it'll be limited in its, so a guy's going to have to be well rounded in what he does. And we've kind of gotten redundant. I mean, that's the biggest problem that's made that. I think that the scheduling and how the tournaments hit, and they can't really control. You try to control the scheduling, but if you look at how our schedules hit for 2 years in a row, it's been like the perfect storm for that just to dominate.
Yeah.
And if we were on different fisheries at different times of year, it wouldn't have. So I think everybody's learning. Bass is learning how to start limiting it, and so because you made a reference about baseball and other professional sports. You should have to be good at all of it, not one part of
Yeah.
it. And you look at the guys that
Unless you're a kicker
right
on a
up there,
football team.
yeah, I mean he's good at kicking field goals. That's all
Yeah.
he's good at.
Or a
But
designated hitter. Other than that,
yeah,
yes, you're right.
our recent AOY champion, he's good with all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Chris.
Yeah.
So is Corey. They're extremely good with all of it. And I never would have dreamed it to folks from Canada. I mean, I didn't until you start going up that way. I didn't realize that y'all had all the scenarios of the Southern Power fishing sitting right there at your whelm. I figured out them guys be good at smallmouth fishing, but they ain't gonna know what to do when they get in the slop. Oh yeah, they will. Yeah, they will. You got it all, and they've shown it. They've really showed out the last 2 or 3 years. But their versatility is shining through. That's kind of what's got me the last couple of years. I got so focused on trying not to get beat with something that I forgot to do what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I don't think you're the only one. I mean, I think and I think the most important thing you just said in that last few minutes is learning. We're all learning. That's the one part of the disagreement that I hate. Like whether people love it, hate it, everybody's allowed their opinion. That you're allowed your opinion in everything. I mean, people can argue over putting a butt seat in the front deck of your boat. Some people love it, some people hate it, But this is such a polarizing argument. And the one thing that I hate is when people say with certainty, this is what it's always like. You got 3 different leagues that came up with 3 different setups. That's for this year. If you don't believe that will change in the future at this league or that league, if one stands out as the right decision, but I do agree with you in the standpoint that you want your angler of the year tested. You want at the end of the year to be like that. That dude can catch them in everything. And that's what's appealing to the sport, if you ask me. Hamner had the lead coming up to the north, but you knew he's got to deal with, Chris Johnson up there, just like you knew Chris Johnson's got to deal with Hamner when we come to Alabama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what's always been so intriguing about our sport. And you look at, I was out Bassmaster did something this weekend, or I saw it this weekend, and it was one of the episodes on the 50 greatest or whatever, and it was about the deal they done about Clun.
The
I
cast,
want you to
yeah.
think about this. That man is phenomenal, everything he does,
Yeah.
but he's only won Angler of the Year one time.
Yeah.
One time. And I've camped around Rick. I feel probably to this day my most enjoyable day that I've ever spent in a boat. I got paired with Rick in a boat on boat draw and at Eufaula, Alabama on it in a Bassmaster invitation. And he and I fished each other like dogs, all day long. And I climbed out of that boat with all the respect in the world for him. And we had a great day. But what I was going to tell you is Rick, as much as Rick has tried to learn, Rick is still set in Rick's ways.
Oh yeah.
I'm telling you now, if Rick Clun, if we went back to fishing in the fall and we did away with forward facing sonar at 76 or 77 years old, he's still competitive. He's still very competitive. But the sport changed and it's kept growing and evolving. And Rick kind of didn't. He's always done his deal. And it finally, but if you look at all the greatest that's ever been, the reason why Rick never won but one AOY is he wasn't he didn't have that versatility built into his game. He would kill you when when it was his time,
Yeah.
but he didn't. He wasn't like these young kids. These young kids, this is the point I'm trying to get at. They do it all. That they whether it's their knowledge that they've acquired through us over all the years, or their time on the water and their youthful exuberance or whatever, they can hit the bank with a flipping stick just as quick as they can go out and 50 foot of water with a drop shot. And I want to see how many guys win multiple Angler of the Year titles coming. I don't know that we're going to see many guys do that anymore. You look at
Why?
through the sport. I mean, how many
Well,
times did Kevin win?
7. And Roland
Yeah.
was 9. But outside of those two, I think next is Mark Davis with 3. And then
Mm-hmm.
then there's nobody with more than 2.
Swindle's got 2.
Yeah, there's nobody with more than 2 outside of Mark Davis. Swindle's got 2. Polnick's got 2. There's a few of them. Aaron's got 3. But
Yeah.
you've got the 9 to 7, and really it drops way off, proving that it just doesn't happen that often. But do you think that we may never see another 7 Angler of the
I
Year
don't see
titles
any
by
way
somebody?
possible. No,
Why?
no. You got to remember when Roland come along and won 9. Okay, I consider it back then there was probably 10% of the field that was super competitive
Yeah.
in its infancy. Okay, and Roland was ahead of the curve, and then Kevin come along and he probably had 25% of the field that was super, able to fish. This field now, I mean, every one of them, I would say there's 90% of the field that's going to be in the Elite Series this year could possibly win Angler of the Year if they string 9 tournaments in a row together.
Yeah.
You can't have a hiccup. Used to, I think a lot of those, I can't remember if Roland's, Kevin and them had some weird points deal, and I don't know what the
2 of
scenario
them.
was when
Yeah.
Roland had his points deal. But now with it 1 point per place, the points, I know Kevin's versus now, there was back when ESPN had it, they had this, it really rewarded guys for top 10s and didn't in the middle. And now it's solid throughout the field. So I don't know. I don't see there being anybody win more than 1 or 2. It's just too doggone competitive. You
But that
can't have a bad day.
it's just strictly because there's no donators for. I mean, that's what you
No,
call them in any other league. There's no donators
yeah,
in the field anymore.
no. I mean, there used to be probably 50% of the field that was going to cash 100% of the checks. And now it's all split up. It's just the knowledge is there. I don't with what the high school and college fishing has done and how these kids are when they come out, they're prepared way better than I was in my 30s. So I had to learn everything I learned was seat time, man, in the boat,
Yeah.
grinding away on the water. I couldn't. I mean, if I wanted to get knowledge of what was in the back of the creek somewhere, I had to go get a plane. You know, how many times? I mean, I've probably flown 15 or 20 lakes in my life trying to figure out what's around the corner. And
Really?
now you just, yeah, I mean, there wasn't no Google Earth. I mean, think about what we do with just satellite
Yeah.
imaging now.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
hadn't been a thing. And
but see, that's what amazes me of all the things that get talked about. Like, that's one of the things that hardly anybody ever talks about. And if you ask me, those satellite images of looking how a lake was during drawdown, everything that, I mean, I think of even the electronics, of all the electronics, if you had to say to me, okay, I'm going to lose this out of your boat, I'm going to lose that, and I had to buy it back, the very first thing I would buy back before forward facing sonar, before even 360, would be the mapping capabilities. You know,
Lake Master Map,
Lake Master maps have, but those maps and stuff, nobody talks about that. That they think that, which, I mean, when you started at 39, man, you had to learn those lakes and you had maps and I mean, but that's also just human nature. The way, like it does get easier, whether that's good or bad, but it does get easier as generations move on.
oh, it's. I don't know what the percentage would be or how much more, but it's night and day. Just from when I was, I mean, from the time I was 38, first year I fished the FLW tour till today, the advancements in mapping alone. Because look, I'm a shallow. Everybody thinks that just because you're a shallow water fisherman, whatever. Lots and lots of my success, even fishing shallow, is you got to be able to duplicate a pattern. Shallow water fish, most of the time, you're not going to go back to the same place day after day after day. So you got to have something that you can expand on every day. And that mapping is my tool. I mean, that's my underwater eyeballs for years. And you couple that up now with the sonar technology and what I want to. There's one thing I want to see this year that I think is going to really be a difference with this shallow water deal. I'm waiting to see which one of these kids figure out how to use landscape or perspective mode and dominate with it because it's coming. It's coming. I mean that technology up shallow, it's coming.
Yeah. Well, that's basically what Scott Martin did in the Open, right?
Mm-hmm.
With his
Yeah, he
win
did it
there.
but he did it with a transducer he can't use this year.
Yeah, that's
He
true.
did it
No.
with he did it with the salt water, the LVS 62.
Yeah.
I was sponsored by Humminbird for 20 years, and I kind of I didn't. I'm not. I'm still sponsored by them somewhat. I'm not at the same level anymore because last year I put a garment on my boat. I just felt like I didn't have a choice. And I went in August. I went down to Humminbird. I was invited down. We went down there and I seen the new Mega Live 2.
Yeah.
And uh, I've actually got it. I've got it on my boat and I've fished with it now since November, December. And the one thing that sold me on it, to go back to that product was on the boat. We were down there on the water. The perspective or landscape mode that the Mega Live 2 has is going to be a weapon. With a Garmin, you have all when you put it in perspective, I call them rays. You have chopped up, look like pizza
Yeah.
slices in the picture. Mega Live 2 ain't got them slices. It's literally like just a crystal clear Humminbird 360. And I think shallow water fishing, and it's just been so cold since I've got it. Our fish aren't up shallow right now because it has been cold. I'm waiting to get out and learn to play with that because that thing could be lethal.
Today's high-tech fishing world can be a real pain in the neck, especially if you're running the wrong mount. Beatdown Outdoors, they bring the graph to you. And they support this podcast and care enough about you to make this a short ad read. Check out Beatdown Outdoors. Now back to the show. I guess I've never really thought about it like this, but you have been a conflicted man the last 2 years because in one breath you're like, this stuff is horrible, we need to get rid of it, but in the other breath you're spending every waking hour figuring out how to use it and not to get got by it.
Look, I'm competitive. I
Yeah.
don't like to lose at nothing. I just don't. That's my MO. Everybody always says I'm walking around with a scowl on my face. Nah, that's just my facial features. But I'm deadly serious about whatever I do, and this is how I make my living, Dave. And you either figure it out and adjust, or you go home.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go home. I've never not requalified for the Elite Series. I've always qualified. I've always made classics, and I'll be back. I promise you, I will catch them. I just got to figure it out. I got hit by a snowplow at 80 on the interstate when that doggone thing is that. I'm telling you, you look when Bill Wilder won at St. Clair,
Yeah.
that was kind of an eye-opening deal. But
I was
it's kind
covering
of
him. He cast half the freaking tournament, dude. Like I remember
know.
texting Zona. I'm right. We stumbled upon each other, and I covered him for all days of the tournament. But I'm like, dude has got his rod over his shoulder
Right.
for half the freaking tournament. So that definitely was an eye opener.
Then we go to that was kind of, I thought maybe that was situational. And then we go to Fork, and Patrick just skinned us all up with a jerk bait in the trees. And that was still kind of like, man, is that scenario going to happen enough to where you really got to buy into it? And then there's a couple more tournaments right behind it. And when Scott Martin won at Okeechobee last year, I'm like, no, you don't ignore this anymore. You figure it out, or you're going to be retired quicker than you wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I think what changed too was if you go back, and I always use Christie's Classic as kind of one of the last going both ways classic wins, where you looked at, he used it all morning, every single morning of competition, but then he flipped docks in the afternoon, and everybody but that was before you had a group of people show up. And I'm not saying this is right, this is wrong, depends on what, but a group of people showed up and said, that's all I'm going to do. Just so you know, I am not going to try the docks. I am literally just going to chase goblins in the middle of the lake. And I think that's what really changed it. You know what I mean? Like, I think if it stays like that for where guys are going in and out, like even from spectators, I think nobody looked at what Christie was doing and said, hey, I don't want to watch this. But when all they saw was that, I think that's when the spectators started having trouble.
Yeah, the big question we got to ask ourselves going forward, and I still say is, overall, and the people in the industry is going to have to decide this, is it good or bad? Because, I grew up and I learned all the subtleties of flat-sided crankbaits. I grew up, in jigs and spinner baits and top waters and what water temperatures they work and what watercolors for this and what, and all the variables, these millions of possible scenarios that you can come up with. And now it's literally, they can show up and go chase goblins in the middle of the lake with a handful of rocks. And then we got a big old industry to support, and a lot of people make their living at it. And are we just going to condense it down? And is that good for the whole thing? I don't know. I mean, right now I'm trying to learn how to do it because I have to. But I just think overall, you're right. 2 or 3 years from now, I don't think we're going to be looking at what we're looking at now. I think it's going to be refined, and the more knowledge that they gain on how this is affecting our sport, I think our sport will be massaged to where it will all incorporate where everybody's happy. It has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. But right now, it's crazy. It's the wild west.
It is the Wild West. And I mean, ultimately, as a fan of the sport, I just want to see you guys fish. And what I mean by that is I want to see you fish, and not just, when I say you guys, not just you. I want to see Kyoya fish. I want to see everything. One of the things that, and I'm sure I talked to you about it throughout the year, that I really pushed, but everybody was so against it. Like, the people who are against it were like, no, we need to get rid of it. But my whole thing was like a limited amount of time. The last 2 hours of the day becomes the Wild West when everyone can use it. And up to that, you'd have, but to me as a fan, that just allows me to see you guys be put in that position, where you have to fish
Right.
under every condition. And at that time, everybody kind of pushed against that because they thought, there's no way to patrol it. But I've said a bunch of times, I can turn my TV on in Canada when I'm in Florida. You can't tell me we can't figure out a way to. But, and I think ultimately, I think that's where it ends up. I think at the end of the day, it ends up somewhere with a hybrid, whether it be that, whether it be certain events you can't use it in. Would you be happy with a 50-50 schedule? Half the
There
tournaments
was,
with, half tournaments without?
I actually surveyed the field, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a big majority of the guys that wanted half and half. Because we all recognize that those electronic sponsors are important to our sport, just like everything else. But I just thought that was that compromise for half the tournaments with and half the tournaments without. Some of the guys, we had conversations about, well, when you gonna let them have what tournaments you gonna decide, they can use a live scope. Let them have it where with the best tournaments they got. Let them have it at St. Clair. Let them have it at Fork. Let them, the tournaments that are the way they set the schedule. Let them have it on the lakes that it's really going to do well on, and the other one's not. But I think there's a way. We'll see by the view numbers this year.
Yeah.
That'll work itself out.
Yeah.
But I think that in a lot of ways, I guess for bass, they probably took the best stance they could, just kind of pumping the brakes and saying, well, "Hold on, let's don't just go into full on panic mode just yet. Give it another year and let's see what happens." And
Yeah, only time will tell what the right decision is, and I think that the right decision will be different for different people because there's a group out there. I mean, you don't hear from them very much, but there's a group that loves it. That
oh yeah,
I go do seminars, I go to speak at different places, and you run into and they're like, "Hey, we love it. I love watching it. I love." So, and that I've always said, like, if it were made illegal, that's when you would find out. And I think MPFL made the decision they made, which was an easy decision for them to make, I think, in a lot of ways.
oh,
But they got some blowback on it. So there is groups that like it. And I think that's the group we're going to hear from if it goes away. But, I went into this conversation with you, Matt, and I only had one rule in the back of my head. I was like, let's not get talking about forward facing sonar. It took us exactly 12 minutes. Just so you know, on the record, you were the first one to bring it up. But how many hours do you think you
Blame it
spent talking about forward-facing sonar in the last 12 months?
till my head hurts. I mean, I talked to so many of our guys and so many people, whether it's on the BP, still friends with a lot of the guys that
Yeah,
fish BPT. A lot
yeah,
of them. We were all together and we split. And a lot of guys are at FLW now. I fished with them guys for years. And, that was a dominant conversation about the whole world. And that's why I kind of just put it to bed this fall. I'm like,
yeah.
for this year, you got to use it. They ain't changing the rules. But now there's a bunch of us that did, that other league. I wanted more tournaments to fish. So I'm gonna fish theirs too. I don't know if my old rear end can handle it at 62 years old, but I'm gonna fish those too, just for opportunity to make some money.
Do you
Uh,
think Bass gave them the greatest gift horse in the world? I mean, it did turn into be a bit of a debate, and I guess people are happy where it's settled now. But by
but
eliminating so much of the entry fee, it just proved the tournament anglers are gamblers, and they're like, "Wait a second, I have 40 extra $1,000. Sign me up."
yeah, I was gonna fish them anyway, but it did. I mean, basically when they did away with our entry fees, I said, great. They just paid my entry fees and do another tour. And I wanted to fish it anyway. If you look at the names that come from Bass to go over there, it's gonna fish this year. It's all the guys that are nitty gritty, shallow water power guys. I mean, it's we just how confident it's gonna be this year in those 6 events to back my boat in and take that godforsaken machine off the front of my boat and say, boys, we're going fishing.
I mean,
I ain't got to worry. I ain't got to worry about them 20-year-olds out there in the middle of the lake just throttling me with a minnow.
Yeah.
It's amazing how big those fish are out there.
Yeah. And we can't ignore that too. You can't also,
No,
as people who are supposed to educate, you can't just be like, yeah, we never saw what was behind the curtain. Like we've seen it now. So there's that end of it. But the amazing thing about the NPFL thing, and I look forward to seeing you guys there. But for years, you guys have screamed about tournament entries and
right.
more percentage needs to be paid back. They pay back like roughly 75% of your entries. So that proved to me for 20 dudes, it's more important than entry fees.
Yeah, just to go fishing. Yeah, I mean it's just to go fishing. I mean
Wow.
you figure like Hackney, Christie, those guys are they're naturally gifted shallow water power guys. And when with the technology that we have now, when they're doing this and I'm doing this, I'm acknowledging right now I can't beat it. Can't beat it. You simply cannot. I mean, I tried for the last 2 years. I tried beating my head against the wall. You can't beat it. As much as I thought I knew, you can't. It's it's taught us more one thing, Dave. There's so many big fish swimming around out behind us, and we didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
All these years, the biggest lesson I learned this fall was, for years, if you were throwing a jig,
Yeah.
an open water structure, you thought he was on the bottom, right? No, you see them 10 foot deep over 35 foot of water and cast the jig out there and watch that rascal swim all the way to the bottom, 25 feet, and get it. And I'm thinking, how these years I was catching these fish on the bottom thinking they were down there on them rocks. And they were suspended up out here 10 foot deep. So,
I know. And how many times you were fishing a row of docks or whatever, and you just fire one off, maybe even just to get loose line off your spool. You fire it out there and you catch one. I got lucky out there. No, you were probably getting lucky catching the few you were catching on the docks.
I probably was. I learned something from one of our young guys this year, and he's really talented. Tyler Williams.
Oh yeah,
He's a special dude, man.
awesome.
He keeps it simple, stupid. I mean, he knows how to use the technology, but what he's doing with it, he is simple. But the biggest thing that I say forward facing sonar has done, there's no brush pile on any lake that's safe anymore.
Yeah.
Because even if you're up shallow fishing, when I go around a row of docks now, if you got any brush within 50 yards of your dock, I'm gonna find it. And I caught fish all fall. I mean, like you was talking about, instead I'd be skipping on the dock, and that trolling motor come around that pole, and I look out there 50 feet out in front of somebody's crappie pile, and I see them sitting up in it. And I'm like, oh, there's one I wasn't going to catch.
I think it's cool that
So,
Tyler's fishing those tournaments too, because he is very good with that. But for him to say, hey, I love the natural end of things, because I do think that's one of the things that's floated around the last year. The amount of people that have said, hey, these young kids, they lose that unit and they're nothing. I mean, I've watched them fish. Is there some of them that are
oh, man.
benefiting from it? Yes. But I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you, I have yet to find one. Maybe I haven't covered that dude that I look at and I'm like, whoa, they shouldn't be out here.
Yeah. And until we see, and maybe this year's the schedule that'll do it, that's really going to test their mettle on their knowledge.
Yeah.
But the flip side to using that argument, Dave, is we've been to so many of these lakes in the past. The only
Yep.
one we got new this year that's going to kind of be the unknown is the Albemarle Sound, or however you enunciate that thing.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how to say it, but I hear it's supposed to be awesome. I heard it's a
Oh, I
Sabine
hear it's supposed to
River
be awesome.
with giants.
Yeah, it's supposed to be full of them. The only flip side is that joker gets nasty. I'm talking about we liable to be there 2 weeks trying to get a tournament in. 'Cause when the wind
Really?
blows there, it's brutal. But no, Tyler is being smart, because I think he still likes to fish. But if you
Oh
were a
yeah.
young kid and maybe your shallow water prowess or your ability to fish without that wasn't up to snuff, that's a great opportunity to go do it. and he's just increasing his knowledge and his ability by doing it. But I bet you
Yeah.
we'll find out he can do whatever he wants to do.
I think you'll find out. I mean, I don't think he does a lot of things, but what he does is right. I mean, like he knows how to throw a jig really, really. You know what I mean? He's a shallow water.
Now,
But even the way he fishes with the graph, I mean, he uses a lot of shallow water principles. And but
yeah,
let's move on from forward facing sonar.
okay.
We'll
What we
probably end
got?
up back there, but let's try. What do you love about fishing? Just the act of fishing. What do you love most about it?
Finding them. I mean, that's what's always intrigued me is always I'm a pattern fishing guy, so I'm always trying to take one bite and turn it into multiple bites. And the best tournaments that I've ever had in my career has been where I'll get one or two bites and can take lake master mapping and turn it into a runnable pattern all over a
Yeah.
lake. And to me, that's the purest form of fishing. It's just like when all the bells and the whistles click, you get the one bite. And when I do seminars, I try to tell these younger guys, look, every bite you have to analyze every bite. And when you get that bite, and it's like, oh, he's on the third, next to the last dock in the back of a cove on this kind, on the north side of the lake. And when all that goes off, and all of a sudden you can run down the lake, and there it is, pull up, and you get bit. It's like, oh, that's as good as it gets to me. You can do the same thing on offshore ledges. You can figure it out they're sitting somewhere on a turn or whatever. But to me, it's always been about the game. It's always been about figuring the fish out. And that's just what it does it for me. Is
Yeah.
I'm simple, dumb, like to use my eyes. That's here lately. That's the biggest thing I miss is I could fish, and I mean even when we was drop shotting and stuff, I could glance at the sonar or whatever, but I didn't have to just lock my world into it. And I've looked up this summer, well, since it's fall fishing, and looked around like, where in God's name am I? Yeah, but that does it. Pattern fishing.
What do you love about tournament fishing? Is it the same thing, just intensified, or is it a different feeling?
It's the competition. It's the competition. But the one thing I've never done is I've never pulled up at a tournament and go, I'm fishing against that guy or I'm fishing against that guy. I've always been about it. I'm fishing against the fish because I can't control what Jason Christie's going to do. I have no control over him or Greg Hackney or Brandon Polinick. I got no control over them guys. All I can do is control what I can do today in 8 hours. How many bass can I go out? What's my five biggest going to weigh? And that's how we judge the game, and that's what's always done it for me. I've always wanted to catch more than the other guy. So,
You went pro when you were 38, 39, FLW
mhm.
stuff. Do you think that's harder to do it? Like when you're 20, you don't have an income really to replace. But when you're 39, 38, you had a life around you that you had to keep together. How was that?
Well, I had a wife and two kids. I mean, it was my oldest son was basically in high school, and then my youngest one was just going into middle school. So it was hard. I mean, there was a couple of months there. I thought my wife was going to divorce me because I just quit my job. That's what I'd always wanted to do, and that's what I went and done. And it was hard, and it's fishing FLW. If you go back and look at all the names. Chris and Corey come from there.
Yeah.
Gussie come from there.
Yeah.
Look at the string of anglers that came from there, and the success of those anglers. And at that time, bass literally didn't pay a lot of money, and you still had to qualify to get in there. So it was a way that if a guy could come from be middle aged and show up and fish tournaments, and fish for the kind of money that you could make pay the bills. And plus, it gave me. I want to say I was there from '03 to '08, and because '09 was my first year on the Elite Series.
Yeah.
So, but it allowed me the opportunity to show up and do that and then qualify for the Elite Series. But yeah, I mean, it's been good.
Did you ever think about quitting it over the years, or once you made the switch, you're like, I ain't going back to work?
No, no, I never. That was my only thing I was thinking about is I gonna be able to make enough money to pay the bills for before I have to, because I didn't want to. And but I've always promised my wife that uh, the day I started doing it, the day I can't pay the bills, and the day it looks like we're gonna have financial trouble, I'll walk away. It's not. I got into this deal to do what I love and to pay the bills, but I'm not gonna be dumb enough to hang around and go broke. So we've seen a lot of them do that.
Yeah, yeah. My parents used to say growing up, when poverty flies in the window, love goes out the door, and not just love of your partner, but love of even the sport. I mean, if it's
Oh,
causing you that much anguish, you can't help but start to hate it. And I'm glad you never got to that point.
I've always. I mean, I wanted to do this when I was in my 20s. I'll tell you this, I missed my chance to rain whole hell on the world in my 20s. Because I promise you, you're looking at Denny Bryer 2.0 with Tommy Buffett. And around the state of Alabama and the Southeast in my 20s, I reigned holy hell. And that was my time, but my choices in life had done been made. I was committed to a wife and 2 children. And I was just raised that came first. Family comes first. And I've always wondered what would have happened if I'd went on and made the jump in
Yeah.
my sooner. But there's two possible scenarios. I could have went on and won a lot of money, which I've done that anyway, or I could have went on and been divorced. So I ain't gonna cry. I got to raise 2 kids. I got 2 good sons. I got a good wife. I've got to do everything I want to do. I tell Bowman all the time. I'm telling you, I'm gonna be the oldest guy to ever win a classic. Just get ready. I'll be the oldest one. That's my goal. That's still what's pushing me. And then
Pretty, pretty cool
if I
record to
get
have.
there, oh yeah, it's attainable. I still got a lot of fire in me. I just need the right 3 days to line up, and that's what happens at a classic. The moon and the stars line up for 3 days, and you walk out of there with it.
When you were in your 20s and you were Danny Brower 2.0, look out. You really wanted to do this, but you had made other decisions. At that time, when you were going to work, when you were raising your family, like in your mind, did you always feel like eventually I'll do this? Or at that time did it feel like, yeah, that's just not in the cards for me?
No, it was always that's what I always wanted to do. I mean, I worked with my dad, and he had a nice, big business in Birmingham, whatever. And that just wasn't never my deal. That was never my love. And he used to give me, and I'd fish team tournaments around home with my father. And he used to give me pure greed day. He'd tell me I'm the most worthless human being Monday to Friday that's ever lived. He said, all you care about is where you're going fishing on Saturday. That was me, man. He said, all week long, you're looking at weather, you're looking at lake levels, you're looking at whatever. He said, you're literally, your sole goal is your next bite. And I said, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's just what I've been my whole life. So
When you made that jump, what was your goal?
to make a living at it.
Just to make a living.
I mean, just to make a living. I mean, I always wanted to win tournaments, and I hadn't won as near as many as I won that. I won the FLW tournament on the Arkansas River, and I won the TTBC, and I've had a lot of high finishes, and I still want one of them blue trophies. But I just want to fish. I mean, the winds come and all that, and I show up and I fish as hard as I could possibly fish, and try to do all the things I can to give myself the opportunity to win. But at the end of the day, if I don't never win another tournament, I'm lucky as they get, because I mean, I've got to fish for 25 years, and met a whole lot of great folks around this country. That's the part nobody
Yeah.
seems to remember. That the only thing I hate about the no info rules and stuff and the no co-anglers and stuff like that is, man, the friendships you make in this sport are priceless. The people you meet that and I've got them all over the country that I talk to 2 or 3 days a week and
Wow.
they were either a co-angler or a marshal or just people you meet. And then that's the biggest thing nobody wants to acknowledge about our sport is the amount of people that you get, that touch your lives and you touch their lives. And friends mean way more than everything else. And that's the part I really love about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I've always said even through the split and through different things. I'm like, the people that are in the sport are some of the best people that walk the face of the earth. You know what I mean? Like that
Oh, yeah.
that's what brings that to me is what makes it a special sport. And also the fact that what you just said, and I think most people feel that you just wanted to make a living. You just wanted to be able to fish. I mean, and it doesn't matter who you look at. I'm pretty sure that's all Kevin Van Dam wanted to do when he started too, or insert whatever
Yeah.
name you want. It's just to keep fishing. Do you remember the
I mean,
moment? Sorry, go ahead.
even it was always, I know you just always wanted to make sure you had enough money in the bank to fish the next turn.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. This Lord give me, let me pay my bills and have enough money to play in the next game. I mean, this stuff's worse. This is the worst drug addiction that's ever been. It is. I mean, it's when I'm sitting there in the mornings and we're waiting to blast off, and I'm hearing you calling numbers and you're introing everybody going out. It's just, I mean, you're alive, dude. Every
Yeah.
sense in your body is alive. I mean, and it, I live for them moments, and it's until somebody gets to experience it. And some people are geared that way, some aren't. That does it for me. I'm ready. I mean,
Yeah.
that's all I've ever wanted to do.
How long do you think you'll do this for?
Till I don't want to, or till I can't afford to do it anymore. But
Yeah.
uh, I'm only 62.
Yeah.
I still fish daylight to dark, and it'd be different if I didn't love it. Even through all what's gone on the last couple of years, when when you hear me say I don't care no more, when I just don't care if I'm getting my brains beat out with something, somebody's they figured something out, and I don't care. Just tap me on the shoulder and say, "Man, it's time for you to stay home. It's time." Because until then, I promise you, I don't like it. I don't. You show me a competitor, and I'll show you somebody that don't like losing at nothing.
Yeah.
And that's just how. That's the way I am. That's the way everybody that's competitor is.
Yeah, you guys are a competitive group. I mean, to just hang out with all of the Elite Series over you. I mean, you guys are always competing about something, whether it be pictures of deer on your phones or cornhole or whatever. That is the one trait that everybody in the Elite Series pretty much has in common, is it not? They're the dude out of their group of friends that is ultra competitive.
Oh yeah, they gotta be. They gotta be because every day they show up at work, there's 100 cats waiting to skin them up. I mean, that's just the way it is. And it. I'm famous. I guess the only thing I've ever been famous for is my altercation with Randall Tharp years ago on the water, Lake Norfolk.
Yeah.
And what most people don't know, Randall and I are really good friends.
Yeah.
But at that point in time, if you want to see what I'm talking about being competitive, go find that video because that that's just the way it is. That was two human beings trying to win a bass tournament, and there wasn't no backing down, no giving. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah. I think that's a weird thing that in our sport sometimes doesn't get. I mean, in certain situations, it gets way overblown, just like that disagreement you guys had. You know what I mean? It wasn't as big a deal as people make it seem to be. You guys, but but I also feel like that's also natural. You know, when you watch football, when you watch anything, you see frustration and people accept it. You know, you see competitors that are pushing each other, but in fishing, everybody I guess just over the years, people have all been painted as they're all good guys. You know, when it's your time, it's your time. But competition is always going to be heated. I think Polnick said it best once. I remember he said we were doing a takeoff interview at the dock, and he said, "When I have one foot on this dock," he said, "every one of these guys is my best friend. You know, that I would pull over if I saw them a flat tire. I would pull over and I would help them. I would, you know, do whatever I could. But as soon as both feet are on this boat, I want to smash them all." I think that's natural.
That's why you're a competitor.
Yeah.
I mean, you either that either does it for you, or it doesn't. And you know, I watch these guys in these clubs, and it's funny. There's a lot of bass clubs around here, and I love to sit back if I show up and they're having a tournament on Saturday or whatever, and I get to watch them. And the part that to me that's special about it is to watch them jawing at each other,
Yeah.
talking smack, you know. And if the general person could come to our blast offs or get behind the scenes and really see what goes on with this group, there's a whole lot of smack talking and a whole lot of gigging and messing with each other. And that's what makes it great, man. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what makes it great. If you wanna get your feelings hurt, you're not a really tough individual. You show up to an Elite Series tournament, there's 3 or 4 of them start jawing at you, and they'll make you go home in a hurry or be ready to fight.
There is a lot of smack talk. Who do you think the greatest smack talker in the league is?
Probably Matt Robertson. He, uh, he, he talks a lot of smack. He,
He
uh,
does.
he and I have had our couple of disagreements, but other than that, I mean, actually, we get along good. I get along with all these guys. Uh, and all the years, I really, I ain't really got any confrontations with anybody that's been long lasting, or I wouldn't say I wouldn't stop on. Like you said, if it broke down on the side of the road, we all get along. But they also know if they could pull over and cut me off, there's hell to pay.
Have you felt, me and you have joked about, some folks call you grumpy. And as you said
Right.
earlier in the thing, it's just, I think you had the original RBF, the resting beach face, let's just
Yep.
say. But do you think that has been an advantage throughout your career? I mean, guys like Christie have got this big rep for being so intimidating. And he's like, I don't really think I am, but it works. It helps him in situations. Has it helped you?
Probably. Probably. I mean, look, if you're a really nice guy and everybody thinks that you're a pushover, they'll push you over.
Yeah.
And you gotta have that little scowl on your face and that little it about you. They know that there's pushback there if they want to start any crap. So I don't. You go back throughout all my career, you ain't heard not a soul say I ever cut anybody off or done wrong. I don't. But I expect to be. I treat people the way I want to be treated, and that's what I expect. And that's the only way I know how to do it.
Do you feel that element of the sport has changed at all, or is that just media hype?
I think it's changed some because the younger generations, I guess, because there's more boats on the water and more competitors, it's become more accepted by the younger ones that fishing really close to somebody's okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because of seeing us on TV.
Yeah.
Seeing us fish rub reel to rub reel, and we've made it acceptable. And that is acceptable as long as everybody involved in the scenario is cool with it.
Yeah.
But when we get into trouble in our sport is when we don't communicate. When you roll in there and you want to fish a place, somebody's already there, or you may think you can get on it a little bit different. It's amazing what happens if you roll up there and say, I know about this too. How can we work this out? Carl Jacobson and I got on a place at Wheeler this year, and I was watching him he got straight on it. I was watching him catch them one after the other, and I was on the back side of it, and I wanted to go out there with him, but it was a one cast deal. And finally, he got his 5, and he looked at me and said, "Hey, mate, wow!" And the next day, same thing. But if he hadn't have, I won't, I wouldn't go in there. But when you get in trouble, is when you just the bull in the china shop deal, and you roll in there and try to force your way in. That ain't the way to do it. But our sport, the way we broadcast stuff, they see it going on, and to them it looks okay, but they don't know what the pretense of the situation was.
Yeah.
And this fishing at fall, this fall at home, that you get I love in the fall when my boat's not wrapped and the truck's not wrapped.
Incognito.
Yeah, you kind of fly around your home lakes, and you wear camo pants and redneck t-shirts, and you just kind of blend in with the crowd. But I noticed this fall that fishing offshore structure, me out there trying to shake them in, that I would get the younger ones, especially high school and college kids, they'd roll out there and they get right up in there with you, and I'm like, boy, that ain't cool.
Do you think that needs to be part of the education process of high school anglers moving forward? Like, do you really see it as is it just a few, or is it kind of the norm?
It's kind of the norm. It's kind of the norm. But look, they're having 300 and 400 boats in these tournaments down here.
Yeah.
I mean, the lakes are so small, especially the only really big lake we have in Alabama is either Eufaula or Gunnersville. And the rest of them are 12 to 15, 20,000 acre and pounds. And when you have that many boats, it's going to force a lot of people on top of each other. And that's becoming kind of the norm. I would like to see some changes made in the high school fishing.
How so?
And I think it would be better for the kids. Well, it's kind of where it is right now because I'm getting the phone calls from the mamas and daddies. Will I help little Johnny? So and
Mm-hmm.
so and so and so.
A lot of that.
And yeah, and I think that somehow we need to stop that because
Yeah.
we're not rewarding the kids, the really gifted kids that do their work and are not that are gifted at what they do. We're rewarding kids that mom and daddy happen to know the right person that got the right waypoint on the lake at the time, and we're teaching them from a very young age that it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
And my question with the sport is, you take like Brandon. I'm going to use Brandon Pollock. Okay, he, he's not that old, but when Brandon showed up here, Brandon had went about doing things the right way his whole career. And he was one of that, what you call it, the less than 1/10 of 1% that actually ever make it.
Yeah.
But now that's becoming the norm, Dave. And when video gaming ain't cool anymore, how many of that 1/10 of 1% politics have we alienated and turned away from this sport? And we rewarded, you know, people who gotten help and done that. It's like I don't know. It's something I don't know how to put. I don't know how to articulate it and put it into words. I just think we need to be really careful about making sure that 1% finds their way here
Yeah.
because that's the future of the sport. And just because somebody has financial means and knew the right people in the right places, because when we come up with a video game that they can sit in the house in the wintertime when it's cold and nasty, instead of going getting in a bass boat, they hang out with all their buddies. How many of them still gonna go hang out with their buddies in the bass boat? So I just think that there's a every year there's a little bitty percentage of guys, kids, or youth that's coming, and somehow or another we need to make sure that we don't technology don't take that naturally gifted guy and take that away from us.
Yeah.
I mean, how many John Coxes are
There's not a lot of John Coxes.
there? I mean, that dude dances to a different drummer, but that drummer can catch him, buddy.
Yeah.
And he does his deal. But how many John Coxers are going to make it to the Bassmaster Elite Series where we are now? Because John, if you think about it, John would never have made it if he'd have had to compete with straight up where it is now. I mean, maybe he would have, maybe he would. I'm just saying we're going to eliminate. This thing's always been about you could do good at all different facets of the game, and you could. I called it in my term of fishing, just like this year, looking at our schedule. I know I've got about 4 or 5 opportunities where I really need to catch them and survive the rest. And we're going to have, would John be able, or an angler like John, would he be able to survive, have his chances and survive the rest? So I don't know. I guess the game's changing and we're going to take that away.
Avco not only makes incredible outdoor clothing, but they care about anglers with their 10% pledge. Avco and the Shed family donate at least 10% of the company's profits to conservation and making fishing better. Now back to the show. I feel like our high school conversation tiptoed back into electronics, Matt.
I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I apologize. But no,
it's how every conversation is nowadays. That's like every once in a while we'll get railed on, like, why are you talking about that all the time? But it's how every conversation goes. But back to the high school thing, I think that's a problem that has been created because when a kid's in high school, when you get an email, because I've been guilty of it myself in the past, and I've probably pissed some people off with my recent answers. But everybody, I could only imagine how many messages you get asking.
Right.
I get a bunch of people asking, well, I'm going to this lake. You got anything? And it innocently, myself in the past, I've helped some people, because he's in grade 9. He's just starting. I mean, I'll throw the kid a bone. Here's an area. But the problem is there's nobody that says, so you do that through high school and it seems okay. It seems like you're just helping the kid down the street, right? I mean, you're a good dude.
Right.
Dude, I mean, but there ain't going to be nobody to help you when you get to college. You know what I mean? And definitely nobody to help you when you get to the opens, the elites, wherever you end up getting to. But there's nobody, but they get caught in that process. That's why it's so important for them to learn properly from the start, because you get caught in that process. And guess what? If you don't get that help, fishing might not be as fun for you because you haven't figured out how to catch them, really, or how to find them. Yeah, I see your point there.
It's a fine line. I think where we're at, the sport is growing. As far as with the youth, and I think it's going to be fine for years to come. I just think that there needs to be some folks sitting in a room a couple of times a year, really having a talk about the direction of it, because it's all happening so fast. It's just like everything else. It's happening so fast. I mean, it's like a whirlwind, and it's just like it's changing 24/7. I keep waiting to turn on the computer the next time or look at my phone and see where somebody's done come up with something totally different. I thought the A rig in its time, I thought, oh, that's the end of it. We're going to be throwing, they're throwing chandelier rigs with 28 baits on them and stuff. And I'm like, my God, where are we going?
Yeah.
That's nothing compared to what we're doing now.
Oh, it's so fast. It's and it's fast for the anglers. It's fast for the leagues. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so much stuff that transducer you talked about earlier that's not legal anymore. But who knew? It just shows up. Nobody asks permission and says, hey, can I use this? Stuff shows up. Like, so that's and the leagues have got to try react and figure it out. Do you think that the newly formed elite angler group is going to be able to help some of that? I mean, because for the first time ever, there has been groups in the past that were part of Bass and stuff, but for the first time ever, the anglers, came together, formed that group. and then went to Bass and were kind of accepted to have a seat at the table. Do you think that will change some of your feelings as far as, a few times a year we need to look at these things?
Yeah, the success of this group that we formed is going to be directly related to how many of the guys participate in it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of these guys that get frustrated. I saw it when we were trying to have discussions about what we wanted to talk to Bass about, and they'll throw their hands up like, "All right, this ain't gonna fool with." No, you got to fool with. Whether they like your opinion or not, we all need to share what we want and participate for the good of the group. And that's what the anglers have got to do. They got to understand that just because you want it one way and you're not going to get it, that don't mean that it's not going to be better. Because with one voice, if I went down and sit down with Chase Anderson tomorrow and said I want A, B, and C, he don't care. I'm just one guy. But if 75% of the field goes down there and says, Chase, we'd like to see A, B, or C, then Chase is going to listen. But they got to stand together.
Yeah.
I my dad owned a big automotive business in Birmingham, and it was controlled by insurance companies. And those shops, one of the biggest reasons that got me to get out of it was the shops wouldn't stand together. We couldn't even get a constant labor rate because one shop would say, well, I'll do it for $65 an hour. And the next shop would say, I'll do it for $55 an hour. And it's before you know it, they didn't have to pay anything. Well, same thing with the anglers. The anglers, if they don't, the leagues can do whatever they want to do if the anglers don't stand up and have adult conversations at the table. And that's what they got to do. They can't get on social media, and grapping and whatever. They got to be adults and they got to go sit down with the ownership and come to an agreement. And then everybody's happy. I promise you, the leagues don't want the riffraff.
Yeah.
And they don't. It's not good for anybody. So let's we got guys we can talk to. We just formulate, have a vote inside if we want changes, and let's go sit down and talk to the league. And that's all you can do. And I think it's great. And if the anglers, because that's the deal, the anglers have to participate in it. Not 55% of them. We need 100% of the guys to work together. And I think in time we will see a much better professional fishing situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
That's always been everyone's got to work together, because I've already heard people who are, but we believe, there's shoot off groups within the group already where they want it to be pushed further for different things. But ultimately, and you're right, the leagues do want it, like the whole facade of Bass being this big monster is just ridiculous, because I think Bass, if anything, they're trying right now to make you guys happier than maybe ever. You know what I mean? Like, they really are trying to make some of all the decisions they made this fall, whether you were for them or against them, they weren't for bad. I mean, getting rid of entry fees wasn't to screw the anglers. I think that everybody, as long as everyone's working in a positive direction, it will end up in the right place.
Look, doing that, when I surveyed the guys on the forward facing Sonar deal, that was great for one thing. I found out quickly I wouldn't want to deal with 100 of these guys for nothing. For nothing. Because you'd ask a simple question and get your hind end chewed out 12 ways from Sunday. And I'm like, when I was done with it, I was like, there's no way if I was Bass, I'd want to put up with this mess.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't even ask a yes or no question. And everybody had their opinion. We don't need to do it that way. We need to. I'm like, holy moly, well, this ain't never going to work.
I went through the same thing about a month before you did when I tried to get involved in the no info thing and tried to.
Right.
And that was straight up a yes or no answer. But the amount of people but right away my phone rings but let me explain to you. And I mean, it's passion. You know what I mean? That's what I'll say. People do care, but it is like herding some cats.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's something else. And look, I promise you, and I've told the guys that I've talked to about this, BASS would much rather sit down with 4 or 5 guys and hammer something out, knowing what the anglers want, than they had dealing with 100 of us. It'd have to make their life so much easier
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's only so many things they can and cannot do. They have a budget. Everybody's got a budget. They know what, I, and I've tried to tell these guys when they start talking all this money stuff. I said, look, this is the money. It's all the money. There it is. You just need to decide how you want to fish for it.
Yeah.
How do you want to cut this pie up? This is the pie. Now you figure out how you want to slice it. And they're not gonna put it. They ain't gonna make another pie. So it's a hoot, man. But yeah, it's been an intriguing fall, Dave. Between the no info rule, between trying to learn how to do what I've been doing. Yeah, I have messed around and killed a deer, so that was pretty good. And it's actually been pretty fun to go sit in a tree and watch squirrels and not have to listen to a cell phone and somebody wearing me out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I imagine. I told you, you're a conflicted man. You've been torn in many different directions. Do you still love it as much as you did when you started?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, I've gotten frustrated just because things have been out of my control a little bit. But when you wake up in the morning and you still want to go fishing, and what's crazy this fall, I fished daylight to dark. I don't know how many days, and I hadn't done that in years. I mean, just be really. You ever been fishing trying to figure something out? Just be so damn mad that you wouldn't go home. I've been there all fall long. I just trying to figure it out, scratching my head. I'm like, it can't be this hard. And I've had some good conversations with some of our younger guys that are really good with it. I talked to Logan Parks,
Yeah.
talked to Wesley Gore. I'm like, all right, boys, y'all got to spill your guts. What am I missing here? So they've actually shared some stuff with me that I would have never thought of. And it is kind of embarrassing when you're 62 years old to call a 20-year-old and say, tell me how to do this. I ain't got
Well, I think that's one of the things that has floated around during all this time that is so untrue. Like you said, there's more to it. Like there's not like it ain't as simple as people. There's a belief
no.
that hey, you just go get one of those magic boxes, put it on the front of your boat, and fish start jumping in your boat, and they invite you to the Elite Series. Like it's its
No.
own beast.
Look, the kids that we have coming, I hate to see what Eastern Fothergill or Paul Marks. I mean, if they have any kind of fundamentals to where they can adjust without it, God help us, because they're so good with it. As long as they can survive the tournaments that they don't get to use it, or it's not a flare, oh, they're going to be lethal.
Yeah.
I mean, because I've kind of kept up with Easton. He's ridiculously good with it. He might be the best that we've had come along with it.
So
I
good.
thought Trey McKinney was good with it. I don't. I made a comment. I want to tell you something. I made a comment. I got just blasted. Uh, when Trey won at Lake Fork,
Yeah.
and I made a comment. I was watching the day four coverage when I was driving home, and I made a comment about what would Paul Elias have caught with this technology when he set the record at Fork, and I got tore to shreds about it. And it wasn't a slight at Trey or anything. It's like that technology is so good. Paul is like the standard of the biggest school of bass that any human being's ever been on in a tournament, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, but you think about it, how many hours of the day when those fish move around and reposition on structure, which they do, Paul would have never lost it.
It'd
He
be
would
catching
have
them
been able to
the whole time.
the whole time. Yeah. I mean, and I talked to Paul about it, and he said, "Well, I don't know if I'd have done any better with it or not." I'm like, I cannot help believe that it wouldn't have been 2 or 3 pounds more than what it was, just because you wouldn't have had those lulls. And if they suspended up or you could have adjusted. The way it was, you were waiting to throw your jelly worm over top of that one rock, and they kept eating it. But 132 pounds or whatever. But yeah, I made that comment about it, and everybody I was down in the kid. Didn't have nothing to do with the kid.
It's true, though. And the other side of it is, if that technology was around, how many boats would have been on Paul's school, too? You know what I mean? Because it would have been easy for them to find, too. I think it's an adjustment period for the sport. Like, I think it's unfair to judge the youth and just be like, I mean, I hate when I hear football players talk about how, like, yeah, well, if they played in my day, you know what I mean? I think that's I think there's things that are easier today. I mean, in every walk in life, like literally, I mean, when I first started working, my first kind of job, I had to learn how to get around town through maps and stuff like that. Now, kids just turn left when the machine tells them to turn left and turn right. And so everything always gets simpler, but I think that stuff's harder for those guys too in the certain ways. Like, I mean, there's never been more professional anglers in the history of the sport than there is right now. So I think that competitive side of it, having to produce a TV show around your tournament fishing, which has become the norm, but the TV show's a YouTube series. That's different. That wasn't, it existed. So I think it always evolves and changes. But I think you're right. It is smart to keep an eye on the direction you want the sport to go.
Yeah, everybody likes to use the analysis about golf and rangefinders, how, like our sport's changing, and they say, you can't use a rangefinder. But 50 years ago, you didn't have swing simulators, and you didn't have putting coaches, and, uh, personal trainers, and all the things that you may not see it on the golf course, so to speak, but the things that are going on behind the scenes versus where 50 years ago are night and day.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all evolved.
Yeah.
I just hope this sport's been really good to me, and a lot of things that I say and do is because I love the sport.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been my life, and I just don't want to see bad stuff happen to it. I want to make sure that maybe I can stress to, the ownership of the leagues and the people have the direction, or have control of the direction to guard it with your life. Because if we mess it up, it ain't coming back. And they got to be really careful, because I want to see the, I won't be alive to see the next Van Dam, probably, because I'm so old. I'll be croaked over dead somewhere. My problems will be over. But all records are made to be broken, and maybe there is the next Rick Clun in this bunch. I mean, my God, Rick, if they showed up now at 20 years old, which are more than possible, they're liable to fish to 80. I mean, can you imagine having somebody fish to, 60 years? It could happen.
It can. Well, Rick didn't start till he was 28. So,
I know.
like, you look at Trey McKinney doesn't have to fish to the same age as
No.
Rick to beat that rate. I mean, it's unfathomable to think anybody's going to do that. But is it really? Like, I mean, we're 2 years away from 12-year-olds fishing the Elite Series.
Yeah. I mean, Trey McKinney, what, was 19 last year?
18 at the very start, but turned 19 right before 4.
If he fishes 50 years, he'll be 69 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and he still got 8 more years to catch up to Rick. I mean, just and his dadgum record right out of the gate is pretty doggone good. So, I mean, he won his first year here and had multiple top tens. And yes, I'm gonna say there's dang good chances that as long as he don't get married and a bunch of kids and all that kind of stuff, and discover life. There's no telling what he will be. He'll be a monster in his 30s.
Yeah.
He really will. Yeah.
It's
You get
sorry, go ahead.
you get the driver's seat, man. You get to hang around and watch it all unfold.
I
You
do
just
have
kind of massage it. Huh?
I got the best gig in the world, dude. I wouldn't switch with you guys because I love to be able to see. Like, I mean, I don't know what the future holds. But I mean, I love that's why I think I'm halfway decent at my job, because I love it. That same feeling you explain in the morning of the boats taking off,
Right.
guess what? I feel it too. That's exactly, but I don't know that I would feel that if I was announcing a golf tournament or some, you know what I mean? Another sport like that. It is a drug. You're right. There's a drug in this
It's a
sport,
drug.
and I'm an
It's
addict.
it's
You're
a,
an addict.
it's like, you know, I'm gonna fish 2 tours this year, and the last time I done that, I I can't remember if it was 2010, 2011. I fished the FLW Tour and the Elite Series that year, and I swore after that year I wasn't gonna do it anymore because it about killed me. But I finished in the top 10 AOY in both tours and made a crap pile of money that year. But the whole deal was is no matter how tired you were, I mean, there was multiple times you'd leave one, go to the other, you'd show up and you'd literally, I would practice. If I got a day's practice, 2 days practice, and you'd be dead on your rear end. And first morning of the tournament, when I backed that baby in there, it was just like somebody shot me up with a bunch of adrenaline. And, let's go. I mean, here we go. And you just roll with it. And it's amazing what that shot of adrenaline. I mean, I don't care how tired you are, or when they give you the drug, you're ready to go. I mean, I could watch Rick. I always camped by Clun, and he dragged around during practice this year, and I think he was hurting most of the year.
Yeah.
Come that first morning, you see that twinkle in his eyes, and that little smirk he gave you, and you knew he was ready to go beat your brains out. So yeah, it's special.
How weird was it? Different for you last year watching Rick, knowing that this? I mean, none of us knew for sure it would be his last year, but I mean, I think a lot of us thought it might be. Was that different for you?
Yeah, no, they my wife, because we was always around Rick,
Yeah.
and for whatever reason, my wife and Rick hit it off, and but she always tried to make life easier, easier for him or whatever. And I started seeing the shakes in his hands and some of that stuff, and uh, I kind of figured this was gonna be the deal, and it really dawned on me at that last tournament at St. Lawrence that he was calling her quits, and I admire him because I figured how would you want to go out? I mean, that's just most people would say, well, it's gonna be my last year. I'm gonna promote it all year long and let
Uh,
everybody know this is my swan song. No, he told him it was a swan song the last time he walked across the stage.
yeah. He
And
actually he actually got mad at me on stage the day before
yeah,
he actually retired, because I had felt that maybe it was coming. You know, me and Rick thankfully spent a lot of time together this past year and last number of years, and hopefully for many, many more years. You know, just whether it be through the podcast, whatever. But and I forget what I said, but I had said something about it being the final event. I know what I said. It's the final event in his 50th season, meaning it was the
right,
last. But
right.
he all he heard was final event, and dude, he turned his head to me, and this is the day before he made the announcement on stage. He turned his head to me. He's like, "What'd you say?" And I said the final event of your 50th season, and he goes, "Oh, okay." So that's the moment when I knew for sure he's announcing something tomorrow, because he was pissed because he thought I let the cat out of the bag, but I didn't, obviously. But yeah, it'll be
Well,
weird without Rick.
he left same. I mean, that's just Rick. The way he left,
Yeah,
that's Rick. Yeah,
yeah.
he and he was. What was really special about him is you wouldn't you wouldn't think he paid any attention to anybody around him, and oh, he did.
Oh yeah.
If there have been multiple times I was like if I was struggling or whatever, he always had he'd say something and always be the right thing. Or if you were doing really good, he he'd say the right thing, and it's like it would make you aware that he wasn't living in this world that everybody thought he was. He was observant. He knew what was going on.
Yeah. A very observant man, and uh, I mean, the world needs more Rick Cluns is bottom line,
Yeah,
because he is. He's truly a great, but that's also what this sport's made up of. Great people that, I mean, just the salt of the earth.
right? Well, which one of these youngsters is going to separate themselves and take on that role? There's a
Oh,
list there about 10 names, and
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put that on anybody. You know what I mean? Like I think that
Right?
that role will develop. I mean, I think you're already seeing it develop with certain anglers. Um,
Hmm.
but like of this, only time will tell.
Yeah.
Nobody knew when Rick showed up that he was going to be Rick Clun, and nobody knew when Kevin showed up that he was going to be Kevin. And I think that's one of the things that I hate about all sports nowadays is like the moment when somebody used to win the classic, it'd be like, you won the Bassmaster Classic in your within 12 hours of winning the classic, somebody's going to ask you, will you repeat? Is it, you know what I mean? It's just the
Oh
way
yeah.
the world is. And, is this the next Kevin? Is this um, I think those things should just develop on their own. But bottom line, good people, there's a lot of good people and good things come from that. I
Well, I
think.
think we're at a point right now. We've got some that's on the cusp of, and not necessarily the really younger ones,
Mm-hmm.
but Chris or Corey, uh, Polnick. I mean, Pollock's already done that.
I'd
He kind of
say,
had it down. I'm just saying that in that 30 something age group, who's going to separate themselves and be the man? Because we're at that threshold. It's going to happen.
yeah,
We're going to have we're fixing to have one of them that'll take that step. It happens in all sports
yeah,
in generations, and I think we're right on the cusp of seeing who this next generational angler is going to be.
yeah. Yeah,
I
there's a
mean,
few of them battling it out in the 30s that are right,
oh yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch them all this year because I wouldn't bet against Pollock this year for nothing or nobody. I think when he shows up at Palatka, he will have a serious case of mad.
Yeah, yeah. The only time I've ever seen him, like, I saw his fire. I, I joked with him the day after he didn't make the classic for the first time in
Right?
his career. But,
First time.
but there's a fire in him that,
Oh yeah.
he's always had that fire, but I just think it's normal. I mean, he's got two beautiful girls. You know what I mean? They're at the age, right? I think it's normal. But if people think that fire is missing, yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a bunch. I mean, Jordan Lee's back in the mix now. Like, I mean, he's another one of
I
those
don't even
incredibly naturally talented. There's the sport's in
I
good
didn't even think
hands.
about Jordan. I don't know why I didn't think about Jordan. I mean, my God, he yeah, I'm just aware of Pollock so much. I mean, Jordan, he's liable to be the one that breaks the doggone classic records. Cause when it comes classic time, he's got that whatever it is.
Yeah.
Either the horseshoe or ability or whatever it is. I mean, he won Conroe. I mean,
Broke
you can't
down.
write a story like that. You broke down on the winning scoop and dusted us all in one day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. I've run a Yamaha outboard for over 30 years. It has got me home safe each and every time. If you enjoy this podcast, remember, Yamaha supports it and they care enough about you to make this ad read very short. Now back to the show. Well, I've enjoyed our conversation. I think this was like an emotional roller coaster. We went a lot of places. Only took us 12 minutes to get to forward faces Sonar, but we didn't stay there. I mean, you tried to get back there a little bit, but
It was not intentional. I mean, it just happens to come out so much. I mean, if you walk into a bait shop in Alabama, that's all you hear. If you get on the internet, it's all you hear.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen any one thing totally take over, whether it's conversation, whether it's crazy.
Yeah.
So
That's the truth.
you're gonna have we're gonna let you referee the fight this year. I'm sure it's coming. You
I feel like I've been
you,
reffing for a while, Matt. I don't. I don't think the fight's coming. I mean, I think we'll have a fight, but we'll see.
it ain't gonna be me. I promise you. This year,
I'm gonna
I'm
keep
gonna
this
worry about
clip. I'm gonna keep this
you. Keep
clip,
it for
and then when I
infamy
run in with
forever.
you one night and we get into a disagreement about it, I'll be like, "You told me it wouldn't be you."
Yeah, it's not gonna be me. I've had 2 years of negativity. I've I've worked all fall just to get to where I was happy to crawl back in my boat. Don't worry about nothing. Just go do my thing, and that's whether I catch them or I don't. It ain't gonna be because of this, because I'm
Yeah.
over it. I told Bill Owen yesterday, to be exact. I may flip a coin before the first tournament, and I may take it all off, or I may leave it all on. It may, if it's heads, it stays on. If it's tails, it's coming off. But either way, I may go John Cox it, but I'm going fishing, and I'm going to use whatever I have to use at the time to catch fish, and I ain't worried about the rest. I'm too old. I'll have a day. I'll have a stroke. My blood pressure went through the roof last year.
But we don't want you having a stroke. Don't.
No,
It's
no,
it's not worth
no.
that. Don't get that wound up. But yeah,
Look,
hey, go ahead.
I'm praying the fishing gods equal things out this year, and I hope every tournament we fish is high and muddy and chocolate milk and all jacked up, and they all got to come back to the bank.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how the schedule plays out. But ultimately, I mean, here's the truth of it. If you could just herd that group of cats, you're in control. I mean, if that group of anglers, the angler group said, "Hey, we don't want forward-facing sonar anymore," you guys could just all agree not to use it. How do you think that would work out?
I'd have an easier time herding up 100 head of cattle and getting them in a pasture with one horse. If you want to, if you called all 100 of them and told them that the sky was blue, they would be 26 different shades of blue.
Oh, that's not. That's an off. It's a baby blue.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
My
true.
hat's off. I applaud Bass after my little dealings. Trying no. No.
No, it's hey, it's passion. People are passionate. They love it, and that's why. Yeah.
Oh, if you want to see passion, this bunch has got it. They got it. They I messed up and called Greg Hackney when I was talking to everybody about that deal. For 20 minutes, I was begging to get off the phone. He chewed me up one side down the other. Oh, I hung up
Well,
the phone. All I could think to myself was, "Is that how he talks to Bass?" He probably don't. It's just because it was me. He let her go. Oh Lord.
well, that's why I think the angler group needed to happen because I think there is part of the experience where you can because it's real easy to fall into the well, everybody wants this because you and the people you're closest with, they all want it. So it's like everybody wants this. But when you realize how separate that group is literally on everything, I mean, but hey, as long as we're all working to get in the right place, you're positive. Stop. We need this is positive, Matt Herren, right?
Yeah, I'm positive. I'm positive. I'm gonna go fishing this year. I'm gonna have a good time. Uh, catch a lot of fish,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna enjoy the season. That's what
Yeah.
I just want to enjoy the season. I've taken, used to my job was fun. It might some days been cold, it might some days been wet, it might have been hot, but it was always fun. And it just hadn't been fun. And I want to go back to fun. And the only way I can do that is forget about all the craziness.
Yeah. All right. I look forward to a fun season.
You have fun in that snow up there.
Oh,
And
he had to
y'all can close the door anytime you like. Because you're killing your southern neighbors. It's cold.
How come a cold front comes from Canada? Like whenever I watch the news down there, like that cold Canadian wind coming down here, but we're never like, hey, that warm Florida breeze heading up here. Like, why do we get blamed on it?
I don't know. When it just does. My weatherman says we're gonna have another Arctic blast. He don't say nothing about Canada. We have Arctic blast. It's coming straight
Yeah.
from Siberia.
Used to be Canada. Now Arctic blast is every storm has a name. Yeah, that's more effective. But I've enjoyed our conversation. Thanks,
I
Matt.
have to. They anytime you want to talk about anything other than FFS, you call me. Because this is the last time we're talking about it.
Bull. That. Hey, I am positive it is not. The one and only Matt Herren. You can always count on you to tell the truth, and I thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Dave.
A great and very honest conversation. Thank you very much, Matt Herren, because through honest conversation, that is how we all learn. So I hope you have learned just a little bit here this week. And if you haven't learned, I hope at least this last little while passed a little time and made your week just a tiny bit better. And if it did, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Do all those things that make us social media cool, streaming cool. You guys are incredible. Your support each and every week, I cannot thank you enough. Don't forget to watch Facts of Fishing, the show on Sportsnet 360 in Canada, on Outdoor Channel in the United States of America. We've got a ton of underwater and cool stuff happening with the show this year, more than we've ever done before. We call it Outdoor Immersion, and your feedback has been awesome. I dig that you guys are digging it. And another dude that I dig is the mighty Bob Cobb. So without further ado, Bob, shut the door on this thing. Until next time, enjoy being Bob Cobb. Take it away.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe because Bob Cobb of the Bassmasters told you to. You hear?